If part 1 was about why the reunion question exists and why it refuses to disappear, then part 2 is about what that reunion would actually mean if it were ever to happen, stripped of fantasy and examined through the lens of reality. Because hope, when left unexamined, can become a burden. And for Faye, Peraya, Malisorn and Yoko, Apasra, the weight of expectations surrounding a reunion is heavier than many fans are willing to admit. One of the most misunderstood aspects of reunion culture is the assumption that time standing still is a requirement for reconnection. Fans often imagine that a reunion would simply pick up where things left off, as if the emotional chemistry, professional dynamics, and external circumstances have been preserved in a vacuum. But time is not neutral. It reshapes priorities, alters self-perception, and introduces new boundaries. Any reunion between Faye and Yoko would not be a return. It would be a negotiation between who they were and who they have become. That distinction matters, because it determines whether a reunion would feel authentic or forced. Industry patterns offer both encouragement and caution. Reunions do happen, especially in genres driven by fan demand. But the most successful ones occur when they align organically with the artist's trajectories rather than interrupt them. When a reunion is used as a corrective measure, a way to calm backlash or reclaim lost attention, it often exposes the cracks it is meant to cover. Audiences can sense when something exists only because it was asked for loudly enough. The danger for FayeYoko is not that a reunion might not happen, but that one might happen for the wrong reasons. Another layer often overlooked is emotional closure. Fans frequently assume that closure requires reunion, but that is not always true. Closure can come from acceptance, from witnessing both individuals thrive separately, from understanding that something meaningful does not need to last forever to have been real. In some cases, a reunion reopens wounds rather than healing them, especially if unresolved imbalances or expectations resurface. The silence both women have maintained may indicate an awareness of this risk. By not rushing toward resolution, they protect the integrity of what once existed. There is also the reality of power dynamics. At the time of their partnership, both women were operating within structures that limited autonomy. Today, at least one of them occupies a position of greater control over her creative direction. Any reunion would need to be built on mutual agency rather than nostalgia-driven hierarchy. Fans often frame reunions as equal by default, but equality is something that must be actively maintained, especially when career paths have diverged. Without that balance, a reunion risks reinforcing narratives of dependence or imbalance that neither woman benefits from. Fans also tend to interpret subtle industry signals as confirmation of impending reunion. Shared timing, overlapping themes, or coincidental appearances are often read as intentional breadcrumbs. In reality, the entertainment industry is far less poetic. Schedules overlap because calendars are limited. Themes repeat because trends cycle. Silence exists because sometimes there is nothing to say. Reading intention into coincidence can heighten anticipation, but it also sets expectations that reality may never fulfill. This gap between expectation and outcome is often where disappointment hardens into resentment, even when no promises were made. If a reunion were to happen, its most meaningful form might not align with what fans imagine. It may not be a full series or long-term partnership. It could be a single collaboration, a symbolic moment, or a shared creative space that acknowledges history without attempting to recreate it. Such a reunion would require emotional maturity from both the artists and the audience. It would ask fans to let go of the idea that reunion equals restoration and instead accept reunion as recognition. There is also the possibility that no reunion occurs, not because of conflict or refusal, but because life moves forward in ways that do not circle back. This outcome is often framed as tragedy within fandom culture, but it does not have to be. Some connections are meant to exist as catalysts rather than constants. They shape who we become, then release us. The insistence that meaningful partnerships must endure indefinitely can overshadow the value of what they already achieved. FayeYoko's impact does not diminish if it remains a completed chapter rather than a recurring one. What makes this situation particularly complex is that neither woman has publicly closed the door. The absence of denial keeps hope alive, but it also places responsibility on fans to manage that hope without turning it into entitlement. Silence is not a promise. It is not a strategy. It is simply space. And space allows for possibility, but it also allows for endings that are quiet rather than dramatic. As time continues, the reunion question may evolve into something else entirely. It may shift from "will they reunite" to "how did this shape them?" That shift marks maturity within a fandom. It recognizes that artists are not static symbols designed to fulfill emotional needs, but individuals navigating complex realities. Supporting them sometimes means accepting outcomes that do not align with personal longing. If a reunion happens someday, it will matter precisely because it was not guaranteed. It will carry weight because it emerged from readiness rather than pressure. And if it does not, the connection remains valid, influential, and complete in its own way. The story of FayeYoko does not need continuation to justify its existence. It already left its mark. Perhaps the most honest conclusion is that the reunion question is not meant to be answered yet, and may never be answered definitively. It exists in the space between memory and possibility, where fans revisit what moved them while learning to let artists grow beyond it. In that space, hope can remain gentle rather than demanding, and admiration can exist without expectation. Whether the future holds reunion or release, what matters most is that both women are allowed to choose freely, without being pulled backward by nostalgia or forward by pressure. Their paths may cross again, or they may continue separately, each shaped by the chapter they once shared. Either way, the meaning of FayeYoko endures, not because it promises return, but because it was real when it happened. And sometimes that truth is the most powerful reunion of all.